Good evening. Good evening. Wow, what a very, very kind introduction. And a question mark here is that whether or not anyone can bell this cap, but I think all of us in this room know how to bell this cap. I want to give James Sanders a round of applause for his great leadership. Because, you know, look, doing the right thing it's a little bit easier when everybody's looking at it. When everybody calls you and challenges you to do the right thing, that's pretty easy to do. But when no one's looking, and when no one's watching, and no one's challenging you to do the right thing, and to stand up against powerful opponents, that requires character and courage. And our senator certainly has both of those. Yes. I want to thank, of course, our public advocate, Tish James, who I had the great pleasure to meet when she was on the city council, fighting for MWBE issues, and fighting to make sure that the EDC in the latter part of the Bloomberg era, when they were having a fire sale on our property, our public property, to make sure that minority businesses had a shot at getting some of those opportunities, companies like mine included. So I want to thank her for her tough and strong leadership on this issue. And Jim, who has been our MC, but also not only is he the MC here, but he's the MC of the black business community here in New York City. And when I first came to New York to work on Aqueduct, as you may remember, back in 2007, it was Jim who came to me and offered support and offered to help us bring black-owned businesses into the mix with what we were trying to do at Aqueduct and some of our other projects. And so I want to thank him for his solid leadership. Now I've got a favor to ask. I just heard Mayor-elect Thomas talk about getting permission to run for mayor. And how he got permission from his family. So I'm going to probably need some advice from you on how to go about making those persuasive arguments. But I'll look you up very soon because that's got to be a true talent. You know, before I came here, one thing we got to do. All of us have said it. All of us mean it. Is that we know that for decades, before there was any discussion of income inequity, before there was any story of a tale of two cities, before there was any discussion of equal pay, there was one person leading the charge and actually effectively leading the charge by dealing with our electoral process about economic empowerment. That was Bertha Lewis. Here we are. We are in the city that is the mecca of entrepreneurship. We are in the largest city in the most powerful nation on the planet. We are the most diverse city, the city of entrepreneurship, the city which is 65% minority. And yet this city does less than 0.3% of 1% of its $18 billion in contracts with African American owned businesses. Now I wanted you to just listen to this number again. 0.3% of 1% of its contracts with 26% of the population. Now, it does less than 0.6% of 1% with Hispanic-owned businesses, and Hispanic Americans represent 29% of our great city's population. Now, that adds up to 0.9% of 1% for 55% of the population. That is just unreal. When I saw those numbers, I said, no, it cannot be true. There's something wrong. There must be a typo. It just can't be the case. Because nowhere else
That's right.
in the civilized world does this happen.
That's right.
So somebody asked me, what does this remind you of? It's not Selma. Because Selma, we had a chance.
That's right.
And we could vote. There was one vote for each of us. They just impeded our ability to vote. This is Johannesburg. So what this is called is economic apartheid.
That's right.
And the difference between Johannesburg and New York City is they're not shooting our young people with rubber bullets. They're shooting them with lead. So this cannot go on. And so we think about this. This city is a city of dreams. It's a city where you can immigrate here, as almost 40% of our city's population is done. This is a city where you can come from anywhere else in the country, and you can come here, and if you want to do it, you can do it here. And that all works all well and good, except for those of us and those of our citizens who have been here all their lives. And their share and their access to the American dream is impeded. It's blocked. And it's blocked, and because they know that the American dream, which is deeply rooted in educational equality and economic equality, is impeded. And they know it. And so our young people have lost the belief in our system. They've lost the belief in opportunity. And you know what? They are right. It's a right-sized view of the reality of the situation we find ourselves in this city. But it doesn't have to be this way. Our children's educational future does not have to depend on what zip code they live in or what color of their skin. The economic opportunity for our citizens in New York does not have to depend on their race. It should depend upon their capabilities and their access to opportunities. And so here we are with these numbers. And we just heard the public advocate mention that the city the mayor is making some progress. He has made an offer. His offer is $10 million for minority developers for pre-development costs, and not one developer can have access to more than $500,000.
Ridiculous.
So maybe they would be able to go and buy a townhouse here, have a down payment.
That's all.
His offer is $10 million in help for bonding. Can that, and by the way, that can't go more than $500,000 either. Could that help you? Because I don't know who else it could help. Nope. So that, to me, is, I guess we could call it a modest step, but I call it an insult. Yes. Because I don't know where we are. I don't know where we are, where somebody can tell me in the city I live in that is 65% minority, that's 52.5% female, that you are going to give me $20 million of my $18 billion, and I need to say thank you. I have to tell you, that's not acceptable, and it is outrageous. And if we take these baby steps, our great, 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 great grandchildren maybe will have a shot at the American dream. So, here we are in New York City, 65%. 65%. African Americans and Latinos alone, 55% of the population. So if we exercise our most powerful, most valuable commodity, and by the way, it isn't money, because however much money you hear I got, all of us are equal when we walk into that voting booth, aren't we? We get to vote one time. And the homeless person outside on the sidewalk struggling to try to pull their lives together, they got one vote too. So if we vote 55%, that means we win every single time. So we unite and we say, this is not acceptable. We love you. You're a nice person. We love everybody. And I don't say that just to the person occupying City Hall. I say that to every elected official. I love all of you because you're giving public service and serving our community. But as the public advocate said, occupying the office isn't the name of the game here. You got to do something with it. And in order to keep it, you need to do something with it. And so it's up to us to say, we are not going to accept this. By the way, it is not complicated. Business is not complicated. Science is complicated. No, curing Alzheimer's, that's complicated. Curing cancer is complicated. Making some money is not that complicated. Building a building is not that complicated. Being a business person and providing an equal access to economic opportunity is very simplistic. If that should be our only problem as a society. So the reason, it was interesting, as you heard from Senator Sanders, I am chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation Board. And there are 46 African American members of the United States Congress. So that is the largest bloc in the Democratic caucus in Washington, D.C. So our caucus can effectuate legislation. And so we have to be agenda focused. And so now the caucus is focusing on an agenda. And that agenda is economic empowerment. Because they recognize that without economic empowerment, African Americans and Latinos will become permanent underclasses in this country. So we had a conference, an economic summit that we convened on Monday, and we had members of the caucus, we had financial leaders within the business community, some of the top, most successful African American entrepreneurs in the country on various panels. We had Gail King and others as moderators, and there was one panel where a brother from Chicago, very successful in finance, talked about how they had been dealing with economic opportunity and why there were so many successful, wealthy African Americans in Chicago. And they had basically 2 dailies as mayors for almost 50 years and a short window with Harold Washington. And they said they did as much business under Daley because Daley knew in order to run the government and get reelected, he had to satisfy the black community. And the way to satisfy the black community was economic empowerment. And he talked about how that had worked in Atlanta, New Orleans, Washington, D.C., and elsewhere. And then he leveled something that I found insulting initially, but I have to acknowledge it was true. He said somehow all of that just didn't make it up to New York.
That's right.
Yeah. And I thought about that. And he was right. So here we are. We're in New York. You all who are elected office are empowered. We in business have a voice. We in business can provide resources to our political allies. And collectively, we can say this isn't going to cut it anymore. And collectively, we can bring about change. So the only thing necessary is for us to act. And what this reminds me of is a quote by an Irishman named Edmund Burke. And Edmund Burke said that the only thing necessary for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing. So let's fast forward that to 2015. And the only thing necessary for evil to prevail It's for good men and women to do nothing. So thank you very much for your